What is up, party people? Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila. This is JemilaBeReadin because I do be reading, and let's talk about the books that I read in August. So the first book that I read in August was, in fact, One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon. They sent me this arc a while ago, obviously before the book came out, which it did, prior to when I finally got around to reading this. I don't think that I accepted the arc. I'm pretty sure I remember receiving the email and I thought I didn't respond. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. But this showed up on my doorstep and I finally got around to reading this. I was pushed to read this mainly because I kept seeing such negative reviews especially from all of my mutuals, especially from my mutuals who are Black. And I got a little bit curious. Like, I believe my mutuals, and they were right, but I was curious and I just wanted to know for myself. And so I picked it up. I am planning, I say this, I'm always planning something, but do I follow through? Hopefully I will. I'm planning to do a full standalone review for this book because I have so many things to talk about and say. And there's some research I actually kind of want to do. I want to look at some interviews with Nicola Yoon talking about this book because I find myself very baffled by what it is that she wrote and what she thought she was doing. In any case, this is following Jasmine, our main character, Jasmine Williams. She is a public defender. She is married to her husband, King. She has a child, and she is also currently pregnant at the start of this book. And she and her husband and her family end up moving to this very affluent neighborhood that is unique in the fact that it is exclusively for Black people. So, they're excited to go here. They're on the come up. They're living the high life, and they get to be amongst their people, Jasmine is a very social justice oriented individual, which is a good thing. I think she is very extreme though in this book and it is interesting. This book is pitched as Stepford Wives meets Get Out. I think that should tell you the nature and direction of this book. And again, I just find myself to be very baffled by the turn of events, where this book was heading and what it seemingly says about a variety of themes. And like I said, I'm hoping that I will do a longer video. It'll also be spoilery, so I can really get into my thoughts. But I ultimately gave this one a 2-star. And once again, I was left feeling very baffled by the end of it. So, I don't tab that often. I did tab a lot of this book because, again, I was like, what? What's going on? Anyways, the next book that I read after that was Several People Are Typing by Calvin Kalsuke. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. This is a kind of speculative, absurdist novel. It's written exclusively as Slack messages to various people in this company. And our main character ends up getting sucked into Slack. It's not explained. Don't expect an explanation, but gets sucked into Slack and is communicating with Slackbot and is able to communicate with his coworkers too. And then Slackbot kind of takes over things. It's a very interesting book and I had a really good time reading it. I just thought it was a little bit silly, a little bit absurd, but I think it also did a good job of showing what it's like working in an office space. I think if you're someone that's worked a typical 9-to-5 office corporate kind of job, I think you'll find a lot to relate about this book, especially if you're someone who's used Slack for your job as I have. And so it was a good time. I really enjoyed it, and there was unexpectedly a little bit of a cute queer romance that happens as well. And yeah, I really enjoyed that one. 4 stars. Could potentially, maybe I'm feeling a 4.25. It's staying it's staying in my brain even, you know, a month later. So yeah. Then I picked up House of Frank by Kay Sinclair. I think this one is coming out in October. This is one of the kind of like freshman set of novels from Bindery. This is under Easy Cat Press. I was sent the ARC, obviously, and I am mutuals with Easy Cat, but that is not going to influence my thoughts on this book. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I had a good time with it. So this is following Saika, who is a witch. This is like a cozy fantasy kind of book. So we're following Saika, who's a witch, and she is trying to fulfill her late sister's final request, which is to be buried at this place called the Ash Gardens. So Saika goes there, and she ends up encountering Frank, who is the kind of owner of this place, and all of the other people who are living there. She ends up kind of getting swept up in all of it and kind of lives there and works there as well. A lot of emphasis on like found family trope. This book heavily deals with themes of grief. I think if you are someone who has dealt with grief or is dealing with grief and you feel like you're in a good space to read about something like that, then I would highly recommend it, because I imagine it would be very cathartic. This book made me very emotional. It was like both cozy and also sad at the same time, but also hopeful. So I really enjoyed it. It was a really good time. I think it felt a little bit rushed towards the end, especially concerning some of the like plot points that pop up in the book. And so yeah, it didn't like totally come together to be like a 5-star experience for me, but I had a good time, and I'm definitely curious to read more from Kay Sinclair when she writes more, if she does. So then I read some books for the historical romance reading vlog that I posted before this. So I'll just quickly go over the books that I read. I won't talk about Rebel because technically I did read it in September, so I guess I'll talk about that again in my September wrap up. But I read The Duke Who Didnt by Courtney Milan. This is a book following 2 individuals. I don't really know how to explain it. The plot is so contrived. I don't like to explain books, particularly romance books, by their tropes. But the plot, there's like not really a plot. Like it's friends to lovers, but also second chance, but also there's some tiffs between the 2 leads. It is probably one of the most low stakes books that I've ever read in my life. Like there's not even a 3rd act conflict or breakup. So if you're looking for like truly a no thoughts, just vibes, good time, I would recommend checking this one out. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought there were moments that were really funny. And yeah, but it didn't take itself too seriously. So I think you should also not take it too seriously, maybe. It's just a good time. I also read A Caribbean Heiress in Paris by Adriana Herrera. I gave this one 3.25 stars, following 2 people. One who has a whiskey business and the other who has a rum business. And there's a marriage of convenience for reasons. I just thought that this was a little bit too insta-love. And the plot pacing was so weird. Like it took so long to get to the marriage of convenience, and then everything after that moved so quickly. Yeah, I gave this one 3.25 stars. Yeah, and then The Duke Gets Desperate by Diana Quincy. I gave this one 2 stars. I hated the guy so much. I don't even want to get into this. If you want to hear my full thoughts on these books, you can go check out the vlog. I talk in depth about my thoughts and what these books are about. But yeah, I hated the guy so much. I haven't hated a male love interest like I did this guy in a while. It was not a good time. The final book that I want to talk about, I feel like this is a really quick wrap up. I feel like I've talked so succinctly in this video. I read We Do This Till We Free Us by Mariame Kaba. This is abolitionist organizing and transforming justice. Mariame Kaba is at least to me, in my circles, is a well-known individual abolitionist figure, especially on Twitter. I had been following her on Twitter for a long time, and I never made the connection that this was the same person that wrote this book until somewhat recently. She does a lot around abolition and, you know, transformative justice. And this book is a compilation of her previous written works that I think you can still find online. But it's all been compiled into this. She did not write anything new, I don't think, for this book, except for maybe the introduction. No, the introduction is not even written by her. So there's like nothing new here. I think the majority of these essays take place between like 2013 and 2018 mostly. There's some stuff more recent, but it is a little bit older. And it does feel a little bit dated to me. I feel like other works of a similar nature that were written back in the day, previously, not current. I don't know why I'm like struggling to find the word that I'm looking for. It's like sometimes they feel dated, but it feels maybe a little dated, but it also feels current and relevant to current times as well. But this one feels very of its time. Not that there isn't a lot of good stuff here that can be used now in the year 2024. I think this is a really good book for people who are just starting out on their abolitionist journey. But I do find it curious because I think this was published in 2021. Yeah, 2021. And I think even just like an introduction, like a new introduction by Mariame Kaba, kind of tying together this essay collection would have been very helpful and talking about its relevancy now. I think that leads me to my next gripe with this book is I just find it to be so poorly organized. I don't have an issue with this just being like old works, old essays collected together in one place, but I just found the way that it was organized, like it just felt like there was no rhyme or reason. I couldn't tell why it was organized in the way that it was. It wasn't chronological. It didn't seem like it was thematic, or there was like a thematic grouping or structure of the way that this essay collection was organized. And I just found that it made it like drag so much, and it felt so repetitive. And I think it's good, particularly with like an introductory type of work to a subject, to have a decent amount of repetition, because that way it'll stick in the reader's mind more. But I just don't know that it was utilized well here. Like I had a hard time with it. I also listened to this on audio over the course of like 6 months, so I'm sure that contributed to a poorer reading experience maybe, but I just really struggled with this. There was some stuff in here that I found to be really poignant and that I enjoyed. And again, I would recommend this to people who are just starting off on their journey of abolition. But yeah, it was fine. I'm glad I read it. It's been on my shelves for the last few years now. So yeah, in any case, those are all of the books that I read in August. Again, I feel like I went through this really quickly. If you've read any of these books, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you read this last month. And also let me know what some of your more recent 5 stars are. I am realizing that I have not had a 5-star read since the end of March. And it's funny because in the earlier part of this year, I was like, dang, I'm having such a great reading year, because all of my 5-star reads were happening like pretty early on in the year. And now it's September, mid-September almost, and I'm sitting here thinking, wow, I've only had 3 5-star reads. I've had 1 4.75 and 1 4.5 star. and everything else has been somewhere in the land of 2 to like 4 stars, or like a high 3. It's like I feel like this happened to me last year too, and I just feel like maybe I need to like really prioritize reading books that I think I'm gonna really love in this latter half. So we'll see. In any case, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.